Fairy Cameo Acrylic Pendant Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hi everyone! In today's video I'm going to be doing a Fairy Cameo pendant, and so it's got nail art techniques and nail art products, but it's on a pendant instead. If you wanted to do this on a nail, I won't stand in your way. You could definitely just use the same pattern and the same design and just transfer it onto a nail. It'd look great, but for this it is on a Cameo pendant base, and so it's got a purple background with white fairies on the front. It is pretty. It is something that seems very spring to me, which is coming up sooner than it just seems time is flying. So it seems like spring is going to be here tomorrow, which I kind of wish because I'm sick of snow, but what can you do? I hope you like this, and if you are interested in it, it is available in my online store, so check that out, and I will see you in my next video. So the first thing that I forgot to do was put the purple down. Well, I didn't forget to do it. I forgot to videotape it. So first I put a layer of purple acrylic down in the inside of my frame, and now I'm going to be adding a layer of clear acrylic. The purple is just a super thin layer to give it color. The clear acrylic is to bring it up to the edge of the frame. I don't want to go over at this point, just up to the very edge of the frame. And so I'm just going to be filling that in like so. And then taking a clear gel, I'm going to create a slight dome shape. So I'm just going to apply the gel, and then I'm going to get it so that it's mostly in the center of the pendant and it kind of fades gently off to the sides. And I'm actually using Madame Glam's gel top coat for this because it's so thick it worked out really well. Otherwise, a clear builder gel would probably be the way to go. I don't currently own any, which is why I am substituting it for the gel top coat. Cure that, and you probably won't have any filing to do. If you do, you can very carefully file it so you don't file your pendant and then apply gel sealer. I thought mine looked pretty good as it was, so I'm just going to go on to the next step, which is going to be sculpting out my fairy with white acrylic. The first thing I did was I added her head, and now I'm going to be working on her torso. And when you're using this, or when you're doing this, use relatively wet white acrylic so that you can get it extremely thin. You want all of these sections to have a really, like I said, a thin quality. So now that I'm going to be adding her skirt petals, and so I'm going to use just, I think it ended up being 4 larger petals for her skirt, and then maybe 3 or 4 smaller petals sort of behind that to fill it in. So these are the larger ones. I'm going to add 2 out to the sides. Anyways, when you're doing this, use relatively thin acrylic so that you can have different opacities and your acrylic can sort of show like the purple through it in certain places, if that makes any sense. With cameos, generally they're sculpted out of ivory or stone, and generally speaking, you can sort of see the background color through the little sculpted part, so you can get depth, a lot of depth that way. And we're trying to go in for the same thing here. So you want to be able to see some purple through your cameo here and there, not necessarily everywhere, but just little bits. With that being said, you may want to go with a white acrylic that isn't super duper pigmented. I'm using the CND Pure White. At least I think it's called Pure White. Maybe it's just called white. I don't know. CND though. And it doesn't have like a bright snow white quality. It's a little bit less opaque than that. So as you can see, like on the base of her wing there, you can see the purple through it, and that adds a really delicate quality to your cameo. And now I'm going to be adding her wings, as I forgot to say. So I just put the bead down and then just sort of took my brush and just pushed to create the little like ruffly look of her wing. So that's the first upper section, and then I'm going to add the lower section just like a butterfly, like so. And now I'm going to be adding her other arm, I guess it's not, there's only one arm showing. Her arm. I'm going to be adding her arm with white acrylic. Once again, I guess I can stop saying that because it's always white acrylic. But I'm just going to add a little arm, and I'm not going to add too much detail to her hand or anything, just like it's resting on her knee. Just sitting there. I had a little bit too much acrylic, so I'm going to take some of that off. And that's one thing that I do sometimes use is the back of my brush to take off extra acrylic. It's got a little, like a chisel end to it. Works pretty well for just scraping it off. And I'm going to add a little bit more acrylic to her bust. Fix up her arm a little more. And now I'm going to be adding her other wing. Still the same process, but this time you pretty much only see the very tip of the upper section of her wing. So add that. Use your brush to push it out a little bit. And now I'm going to be adding her hair. For some reason, probably because of Tinkerbell, I always associate fairies having a bun. So I'm going to be giving her a bun. So I'm going to start by just adding a little more acrylic to her hairline just to really define that, and then I'll go through and add a bun. Add a little more acrylic to her arm. As I do anything like this, I like to just do things in progression and in layers. If you start out, and if I was to make her arm, try to make it exactly as large as I wanted it to, it very possibly could end up bigger than I intended. And when that happens, then you have to pretty much file it off and start over. But if you start out and make things a little smaller and progressively build upon them to make them the right size, then you hopefully won't have any filing to do. It might take the same amount of time, but to me, filing is just frustrating. And if you didn't have to file it, it's a benefit. So I like to build things up. And I'm going to be making 2 little butterflies, one on either side of her. And I'm going to give them basically the same wing shape. So I'm going to do each of the upper wings with the same like pointed shape. I'm going to do those each with their own bead, and then for the lower wing, or the lower sections of the wings, I'm going to place down 1 wet bead and then break it in half with my brush and sort of pull it out. I think that's probably the easiest way I've come up with to do that. And then I'm going to dilute some white paint, and I'm going to be highlighting my fairy, and I'm going to focus on the areas that I want her to be highlighted. So I'm not going to completely go over the entire thing with that. If you get just a little bit of paint on your brush and then you gently like feather over it, it'll highlight the high planes of the acrylic, and it'll leave all of those little indents there, which will just enhance the 3D quality. And then with a little brush, I'm also going to add some little white details to my butterfly, like give it a body and a couple little dots on the wings, and then also highlight my fairy in the areas that I definitely want to be nice and visible and highlighted, like the lines of her wings and her arm and on her skirt. And this is with full strength white paint, if I didn't mention that before. Had just a little bit of highlighting on her face. I didn't do too much of like eyes and nose and mouth on her face, but just go through and highlight, say, her cheekbones. That's going to give the face so much depth without really doing much at all. And then apply a layer of matte top coat over the 3D, so over your fairy and over the butterflies. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this design. This pendant is available in my online store. There'll be a link in the description box below, so check that out if you're interested. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!